getting burned, kicked off a ledge, or eaten by a giant plant. Just some of the many ways you can go out in this 2017 thrill ride. I'm Joe, an ex-gaming industry pro, and today we're getting creative with our chaos as we review Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition. Originally released in 2011, then remastered as the Full Clip Edition in 2017 by People Can Fly and Gearbox Publishing, Bulletstorm isn't your typical shooter. It's crude, it's chaotic, and it's packed with over-the-top action. You play as Grayson Hunt, a washed-up space pirate seeking revenge against a corrupt general. But really, the game is all about unleashing wild skill shots that make you feel unstoppable while everything around you blows up. The original game flew a bit under the radar, and according to an unnamed source from EA, it underperformed for them. But let's take a look ourselves to see how good this game actually was. Stick around as we dive into some of the good, the bad, and the whatever this is. Bulletstorm is a first-person shooter with a unique selling point: skill shots. Each kill is awarded points based on your creativity, and the game actively pushes you to get as wild as possible. You've got guns, your boot, the environment, and a leash that lets you yank enemies into traps. It's like a playground for anyone who's ever wanted a shooter that isn't just about aiming at the head. Story-wise, Bulletstorm is about Grayson's revenge quest. Grayson is a crude, sarcastic anti-hero, and his interactions with Ishii, a cyborg ally who's torn between his human emotions and robotic programming, add a surprisingly engaging dynamic. The story is pretty much set up to be satire. It's over the top and cheesy, but it knows this, and it's aiming to parody other gruff shooters. Now, I'll admit, the game's start is a bit slow. There's a lot of cutscenes and scripted events before you finally get the leash and can start flinging enemies into spikes. But once you get the leash and eventually discover the skill shot system, it flips from a generic shooter into something way more addictive. Suddenly, it's less about survival and more about seeing how creatively you can clear the room. This skill shot system is what sets Bulletstorm apart from your typical shooter. It's basically a reward system for experimenting. Whether you're firing a sniper rifle with a guided explosive bullet, kicking someone into a cactus, or creating chain reactions with environmental hazards, it makes every encounter feel like an opportunity, and you can't wait for the next set of enemies to try something new. The game's pacing keeps things intense. It pretty much never stops throwing new things at you, new challenges, new ways to defeat your enemies, and some absolutely bonkers over-the-top stuff that shows it's not taking this seriously. For further proof it's not taking this seriously, please see Exhibit A. Getting a skill shot by shooting a mini-boss in the behind is called Fire in the Hole. I don't need to go further with that, but you can tell it's all in good fun. And just a quick note on the humour, it's honestly not my type of humour, but I can definitely see it appealing to some people. It's very crude, very over the top. Again, like a parody a little bit. But we'll get into the humour and dialogue properly later on. The remaster brings a few upgrades, including a smoother frame rate, upgraded graphics, and, if you're interested, a mode where you can play as Duke Nukem. Hooray! I won't do a comparison between the original and the remaster, because I last played the original on the Xbox 360, so it's been a long time. However, for a remaster in 2017, it sure has its bugs. It doesn't really affect the gameplay too much, but I had stutters and freezing whenever there was a big action scene loading up. But the worst bug of all was this. In a big emotional scene, the main character is about to give his redemption speech, and he just stares and gestures while dramatic music plays. It's hilarious, but not in a good way. But the good part of Full Clip Edition is that it includes all the DLC, giving you extra maps and modes to mess around in. Plus, the Echoes mode lets you revisit key levels to perfect your skill shot score, and compete against others on a leaderboard, which adds to the replayability. I won't talk about the Duke Nukem add-on because it's literally the same game, but you're Duke Nukem. Cool if you're a fan, kinda pointless if you're not. Visually, the game looks quite nice and definitely has its pretty moments. It's bright, colourful, and every level has its own personality. From lush jungles to industrial wastelands, the environments feel alive, especially when there's a big action scene. I don't know how that'll come through in the video, as I had some issues with recording the gameplay, but you gotta trust me when I say it does look nice. My only issue, except for the stutters and the freezes, is that some cutscenes seem untouched from 2011, creating an odd mix of polished and dated moments. On the other hand, the sound design is very nearly perfect. I said nearly, okay? Guns have punch, explosions shake your screen, and the soundtrack keeps the energy high throughout. The voice acting also really works, especially Steve Blum's gruff voice as the main character.
Lay low until
we're not going anywhere.
The story is a standard revenge tale. Grayson's driven by anger and regret, while Ishii's struggle with his humanity adds a bit of weight. Nothing special though. There is a wild bit to the plot in that it's set on a planet intended as a paradise, but it was twisted by corporate greed into a nightmare populated by mutant criminals. The tone throughout is pretty much locker room banter, dick and butt jokes everywhere, but again, I'm not media literate enough to tell you whether it's all an attempt to parody Gears of War or they just loved that kind of humour. On a side note though, they really did a good job with the antagonist. You really end up hating him towards the end, not just for his actions, but his obnoxious personality. Heads up though, if you're intending to play this game, he spouts a lot of slurs, general racism and sexism, you know, as he's a terrible person. But just as a heads up in case you're really not wanting to hear that. I'm not going to spoil it, but the narrative ended on a cliffhanger and the devs have said they intend to go back to it at some point with a sequel. It's been over a decade and all we've had is a remaster and a VR version, so who knows? What I do know is the narrative doesn't really matter too much. The main selling point is the gameplay, so don't be too discouraged by any criticisms of the story. So, what do I think of Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition? I love it in all honesty. As I was playing through, I didn't feel the time go at all. The skill shot system alone keeps the gameplay fresh. It's obviously not without its flaws. The humour can be hit or miss. The story isn't groundbreaking, and there's a few bugs, but as an action-packed, mindless fun shooter, it absolutely delivers and will make you forget those flaws. While it may not be for everyone, Bulletstorm deserves credit for trying something different. If you're looking for a game that lets you blow off steam in the most over-the-top way possible, this one's a blast. Literally. If you enjoyed this review and want to see us tackle more games like this, hit that like button and subscribe. As always, have a good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, whenever you are, and catch us next time where we'll be exploring an Xbox Game Pass game. I don't know which one it is yet, but maybe the footage will. See you then.